Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Coaches Close Clients podcast. Today, we're joined with my good friend, Oliver Wolf, who is the owner of the Wolf Syndicate, and he's actually a sales coach for entrepreneurs. So I'm super excited to have him on here to share his wisdom and his top tips, everything from mindset to actual tactical strategies. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for having me on. I know we had a bit of difficulty getting this set up with me traveling and all this kind of stuff, but I'm glad we rescheduled and we got it going.
Yeah, welcome back from Costa Rica. Oliver was just
Yes.
on a month-long retreat, I believe.
Yeah, it was basically it was a mentorship which led into a retreat, mentorship which led into a mastermind, which led into a festival called Envision Fest. So it was pretty wild for 1 month. Felt like a year packed into 1 month.
Yeah, yeah, that's super awesome. And like you live in Ottawa, which is incredibly cold, as I would know. So must have been really nice to get away from the negative 20 degrees, although I feel like it's still negative 20 right now.
Oh yeah, it was hilarious. I think like the day after we left or something like that, our roommates David and Christina were like, "Bro, huge snowstorm just came in." Like I was like, "Yo, that's perfect. Thank you for letting me know."
Yeah, Canadian problems for sure.
That was pretty good.
Cool. Well, talk to us a little bit about how you got into sales coaching, kind of your past experience with sales, and what motivates you to kind of work with entrepreneurs now.
Right. Few questions there, I guess. I
Yeah.
think like the primary answer in terms of like how did I get here was just really natural progression, in the sense that it's like I was simply driven by wanting to always win, never at the expense of someone else losing, but for me to always win and always become first or better or this or that or the other. And so what's fun about having that mentality is you inherently ask yourself the question, well, how can I win? Right. And like success is really what I've found personally. Success is about the questions that you ask, because in asking the right questions, you can find the right answers, right? The answer is there. You just need to ask the right question. And so by and like insisting on that question in everything that I did, which we can dig into a little bit, but just everything that I did, asking myself, like, how can I win here? How can I be the best? How can I be number one? How can I not beat the competition, but really be the best that I could possibly be within this environment, within this scenario and such. And so by continuously asking that question, I would be driven to these powerful answers that allowed me to succeed over and over. I broke records within franchise businesses. I would, I don't know, all kinds of like first place and leaderboards in my sales positions, like always at the top because of that primary question. It was never asking myself like, how can I make more money? How can I, pay the bills? How can I do that? I was like, no, how can I fucking win? And so, so fast forwarding it to basically where I am in terms of my own business now, with sales coaching, is in having one as an intrapreneur, for which I define as someone with an entrepreneur spirit, that fire, that desire to push and succeed, but pushing someone else's business forward or vision forward. So I was an intrapreneur for a very long time, up until July 2018. So only about like 9 months ago, 8 months ago, something like that. And that was the point, the threshold I met, which was that within the intrapreneur role, I'm inherently limited creatively, right? Like I am always at the whim of the one at the top, which again, to a degree is amazing because there's so much to learn, so much to grow, so much experience, and so on and so forth. But I reached that threshold, which said, you know what? I really do need to begin writing my legacy. I really do need to begin moving into or stepping into my power and taking control of really my own destiny. And so that led me to a bit of an abyss in the sense that I left my last position, which was I was a business coach under a brand. So I'd already been coaching for about 2 years. And so I left that with very little clarity on what I wanted to do, just knowing that it wasn't to stay in there. That was for sure. And so one of the things that I find myself doing often, and I think that probably a lot of listeners or entrepreneurs or whatever, is the classic shiny object syndrome, which is that, typically when I would leave a position, I would almost instantly get a new role within like 24 to 48 hours. And it would be a really good role. Like I went from franchise to franchise or, sales rep position to sales rep position. And they were always really good roles, but I never gave myself the space for opportunities to really like flow past me such that I can really be more selective about them. I sort of just like let the first one come in and think, okay, it's good enough, let's go. And so this happened again where opportunities were flowing to me. I mean, as I left that position, I had like countless people saying like, oh, come sell for me over here, come sell for me over there, you know, come do this, come do that, which was great and humbling. However, I wanted to let things flow. I wanted to leave it be for a little bit until finally some interesting alignment happened with one of my now roommates, David Pare. He was just launching a new program called the Embodied Influencer, which I think you might be a part of now, right? Right. Yeah. So this was back in July when it was the first launch. It was the beta launch. And so he told me about the idea, all that kind of stuff. And he had said that over the years, he always saw me as someone who would step into this role of running my own business, really being my own coach, all that kind of fun stuff. And so he pretty much pushed me to do it in a healthy way. And it sort of just aligned that was what I wanted to do. I was just like, yeah, you know what? Like, I'll just take coaching my own way. And long story short, it's been about, like I said, 8-9 months since, I mean, you've watched the journey because right around the time that I launched was when our friendship began. So you've sort of seen the story since then. So I don't know if maybe there's specifics on my story you'd like for me to share.
No, I think that's super awesome because so Oliver and I met at a networking event, and I think that night was when you were handing out flyers for the retreat for the Wolves, or it might not have been the retreat, but you were
No, it was totally the retreat. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're handing those out, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Like, because at the time I was actually doing sales, kind of freelance basis. And then and it's super funny to hear that, you know, David was the one that helped you grow. Now David is actually helping me to really grow my business, so that's really cool. Awesome.
So I guess we'll do a shameless plug for David Pare and Christina Elizabeth here with the Embodied Influencer. If you're a coach looking to grow your business,
I think my audience is pretty familiar because Christina is always in my Facebook group, also kind of sharing and posting her journey. So that's super awesome. Okay, so kind of getting into sales, how has your mindset around sales kind of shifted? I'm curious specifically about, like, you went from like doing a lot of product kind of sales, and then I think you were doing some kind of technology sales for a while, and now you're doing a coaching service sales. So kind of walk us through how sales is kind of different in all these different environments. Because I think when a lot of coaches first start out thinking about selling their products or services, they think, you know, the traditional way of selling a product versus is actually quite different for selling something like a coaching service. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, actually, it's been really interesting. So to even broaden that spectrum that you mentioned in terms of, like, you know, I sold products, I sold tech. Really, I've pretty much sold every possible category. It's like products,
right? Because you also did real estate,
software. We dabbled in real estate investing. What's it called? Franchises, coaching. Like, I've basically sold anything you could possibly think of in terms of categories, and in every possible way, right? So like over the phone, video call, in person, like, just, it's been ridiculous, but really fun, obviously. And so it was interesting because, so when I approached actually selling my own coaching versus, again, product, service, whatever, in the end, there's a lot of truth in the fact that sales is sales, right? No matter what it is, how much it is, you know, it can be sold pretty much the same way. It might take a little longer for one thing or another, but on the whole, it's pretty much the same way. Assuming you're using what I'll be bold enough to say the right way. But I think everyone has their right way. But what I found as a method that works with, like, all my clients, all my friends, and so on and so forth, and which has evolved through this position of really selling my own. So to sort of backtrack where I was before getting into my own high ticket coach selling is very mechanical, strategic, analytical, very like factual, very little emotion, which is where we're going to definitely transition into in a moment. But very, again, logical, needs-based, you know, really addressing their needs, all that kind of stuff, which arguably is emotional.
This is for products you're currently talking about.
Products, it was any of them, right? Anything at all, right? This just worked with everything that I had done, which is what was so conflicting for me when I had transitioned into selling my own coaching, was I was failing miserably. Like, it was actually hilariously ironic that as a sales coach, I could not sell a freaking contract. You know, it was really, really hard on me. And what sucks is that irony really turned into actually like depression and really got to me. I felt it was really surprising because I never thought that this would happen for me, but I had literally gotten to like a state of frozen fear, which had never happened to me in my life before, this much of a state where I was just like stuck in the fear. And it was to the point where my now fiance literally had said, I don't recognize you. I was like, wow, like it was really, really bad at one point. And so I really needed a shift. And fortunately, so like at that point where I was, you know, staring over the edge of the abyss, really wondering if this was the time to jump. I realized that I needed to, one, come back to basics, but two, I invested into a different kind of mentor. The mentor that actually ended up bringing me out to Costa Rica. And the way that he sold me mesmerized me. And I was like, holy shit, whatever you just did to me, I need to know that. I need to learn that because it was different from what I had done. And so what was beautiful, though, is I was able to add everything that I had created in terms of, again, mechanical ways, you know, the steps to it, building the buying environment, which I still condone as one of the most important things, is building that buying environment, which we can talk about. But what I had then added was this whole other layer of emotion, of really like emotional selling and getting that as a concrete way to get people to want to buy. And so what that looks like, and I think a lot of people can at least understand this on a high level, is it's about going from, so especially in Western culture, we're always in the mind, right? We're always mechanical, technical. Even if you're not an analytical individual, you're still typically very much in the mind because that's just how our society has been brought up. And so what you want to do is get them from here, where it's all logical reasoning, where if they're going to buy, it needs to be like checkbox, 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 you know, logical reasons, to bringing them down to the heart where there is no logic. And the moment that you have them emotionally sold, there's no longer any justification needed for why they're going to move forward. They just feel like it's right. And as soon as someone feels like it's right, it's over, right? It's done. It doesn't even matter if they find someone who's got a better price, right? Like half the price and seeming to give the same value, which is obviously never the case. But the fact that you've gotten them to just feel like you're the one, to think to themselves like, Oliver's the one or Nika's the one, like just that phrase, you got them, right? And that's it. And so that's sort of the thing that I've really added is how do you get them to feel that way, right? So I don't know if you want to break into that, but or unpack that.
Yeah, sure. Let's go into that. And is that kind of related to the buying environment that you mentioned?
Sort of. So the buying environment is more of the technical type stuff, mechanical, logical, fun stuff. To give a really, again, like, and this is fortunately not one you have to get too deep into to understand. So I can still stay pretty high level with it. So basically the buyer environment is just the fact that when you get to the sales appointment, is that appointment created in a way that, assuming you do a perfect job, they can buy, right? And so what I mean by that is, you know, have you made sure that all decision makers are there if there's multiple decision makers? So what if maybe you're doing a service on like, you know, homeowners, or if you're talking to a business, you know, partners or whatever. So are all decision makers there? Super important for the buying environment. Another one that's simple too, and that a lot of people will kind of forget is, are they even in a position that they can buy physically? So what I mean is, a lot of time, some people will take their sales call while they're driving. You're not going to close while your prospect is driving. I will reschedule the call. If that happens, I'm like, hey, you know what? I can tell that you're driving right now. How about like, when do you think you'll be home? Half an hour. Great. Okay. How about I give you a call in an hour so you can settle in, get prepared. I really want you to be focused and, you know, in front of your laptop or whatever. So the physical environment too is super important, because if they can't physically, and although they don't do this anymore, but still try to keep this in mind, is if they can't physically take out a check and write out a check to you, then they're not going to write a check out to you, right? So that's like an important thing. So anything that creates that buying environment. Other things that I do for that is, for example, I try to pre-build trust and professionalism. What I mean by pre-build is, it's not like, and we kind of just talked about this just before we came on, it's not like a lead comes in, you give them a call, you say, hey, let's book an appointment, book the appointment, goodbye, and then you just talk to each other at the appointment. Like, no, you need to do a lot of work before you get to that appointment to, again, build that professionalism, build that trust, and so on. And ways to do that, some quick little, golden nuggets is, or one of my favorite to build trust is on what I call the prep call, that initial call to book them into an appointment. One of the things I'll do is I'll say, hey, what I'll do is I'm going to give you a call 2 days before just to confirm our appointment. Now, this, of course, allows you to confirm the appointment, which is fine and dandy. But really what you're doing is you're making a promise, right? And then you're giving yourself the opportunity to fulfill that promise before you get to the appointment. So when you get to the appointment, you've already built trust.
Right.
And so these little tidbits, it's these little things here that start building that trust, that confidence, that professionalism. Again, another one is just like setting it, like just fulfilling these promises that you're making help with that trust. So that's, again, high level of basically what a buying environment is. Is the person, when you get to the sales appointment, are they in the position where they can actually make a buying decision now? If not, don't even get on the call. It is not worth it. Reschedule. So that's one thing. Any questions on that or any thoughts?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess a question leading from that, which we can go into later too, is like, what have you found to be the best ways to actually build trust online? Because a lot of coaches are, they're trying to grow an audience. That's how they're bringing their leads in, and they're kind of wondering like how much exposure does a cold lead need in order to build up that trust. So I'm just curious about like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we could probably touch that pretty quick. I think there's two main things. One, consistency. That's kind of intuitive, but needs to really be acted on. I think a lot of people get that as an idea, but aren't actually doing it. And so what I mean by consistency, it's like, consistently posting content that shows who you are. So not just in terms of like, I'm an expert and I know my shit, but also like genuinely like, who are you? Because the fact is, if I have a prospect, right, and I have a competitor, I don't even like to call it a competitor, but like someone else who's selling a very similar service or contract, whatever. The primary reason that, and if, again, assuming same price, like almost the same thing, the reason that they're going to go with me over them is because they just like me better, right? And for someone to like you better, they need to know you better personally. And so a large part of the consistency you need to have online is not only like, again, your professional content, your expertise, your all that kind of fun stuff, but also content that shows like you're a funny girl, like show your fun side, or like the trolling side, or like the loving side, or the nature loving side, like whatever, but show these parts about that make you who you are. That kind of stuff really helps build trust, because they're like, wow, you're a real human being. Like, so that's super important. And then actually, I think I just highlighted both in one right there. Consistency. What was the other one I was going to say? Oh, right. Sorry. The other one actually was, don't overestimate the need to do that in the first place. So I think this is another sort of misconception. And actually, I just spoke about this with my roommate, Christina, yesterday, which was that she has a bit of a paradigm that says they need to like already know me and have X amount of touches and already feel like they know me before I actually reach out to them and talk to them about an offer. And I think that's bullshit. Because one, it's simple, and I'm just evidence of it. I use, and you use it too, right? Meet Leonard, right? I use Meet Leonard, and I just closed someone this morning who I sent a cold message to through LinkedIn, Meet Leonard, I think yesterday or Saturday, right? And I just closed them on a $4,500 contract. And all I did was like one message. And then I think maybe like 3 more messages after that, just to get like the time, his phone number, his email, like not even like connecting stuff, just like give me your info. And then like, boom. And then I get on the call with him and we're good to go. Now, of course, this wasn't the best example of creating a buying environment, because it was like one day to the next. Usually buying environment, you need a few days to do that. But that's the point though, is you don't necessarily need as much of that as you think. So just be careful with that sort of paradigm of things. I think a lot of people are like overvaluing that versus just talk to them, just contact them, like right on off the bat, be clear about your intention, transparent, clear, honest, and ask, like, can we get on a call to see if we can get to know each other a little bit better and see if there's an opportunity for us to work together. Super light, easy touch. That's literally what my Meet Leonard is win relationship, get to know each other a little bit better. It's just cool. And it's like, okay, cool. Nothing to lose. And so I think that's just a big thing. It's like, cause here's the thing, like there's no better way to build trust than to actually have a conversation with someone.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, get them to the conversation. You don't need like 10,000 touches or all these like emails and things and so on and so forth. Just get them on a call.
Right. Got it. So you don't really think it's necessary to have like, come to my Facebook group first, and then you'll watch some of my live videos, and then
it's like still do that, right? Invite them, get all that stuff up. Like, do not stop doing that, especially because there are some personality types that will need that first. Totally fine. But what's important, I'm saying, is don't let that stop you from still trying to get a hold of them right now. Right? Like just start trying to connect now. Right? And I'll even use I think, what was it, like 2 days ago, I used another line. I was just like, I don't usually, what was it? Yeah. So I added someone to my group, and usually what I do is I have my VAs send them a message 2 weeks later saying, hey, I hope you like my content. Would you like to get on a call? Right. So it's like, intelligent in that way. But with this one, I think I saw like his application. It said something about like his challenge he was having. And so I just went right at it. I was like, hey man, like I see that this is what you're having a problem with. Let's get on a call. I don't usually do this like just as someone comes in, but I believe that fortune favors the bold. Let's get on a call. Right. And it's like using these kinds of things. It's like, they're like, yeah, you know what? Fuck yeah. It's like, just like spell it out in a motivational way, like fortune favors the bold, or these kinds of things. And people are just going to be like, totally, man. Like, I feel you. Like, these are the kinds of things that people love too.
So sometimes, and then other times they're like, who are you? Like,
yeah, for sure. And I think, and that's why, again, like there's a sort of, there's a level of like having a lot of experience, you can sort of sense if the person is going to like resonate or not. And there's also a way that you can always do it, that even if the message that I sent, even if it didn't resonate, it wasn't in an offensive way or like a pushy or direct way. It was really just like a sort of like a light, friendly, fun kind of message that worst case would be like, you know what, actually, I'm not ready for this. It's like, hey, no worries, man. I'll touch base with you in a couple of weeks or something like that. Like, you just make it light, low commitment. That initial call, I always say it's 15 to 25 minutes just to get to know each other better and see if there's an opportunity to work together. It's so light. It's so low commitment, and that's all you need. And then what I'll do is on my 15 to 25 minute call, if it's a good fit, that I believe it's a good fit because I'm interviewing them to make sure I like them, right? I'll then offer to transition into an actual full call. And so, for example, this morning, 15 to 25 minutes, I think at the 20-minute mark, I was done my initial sort of qualifying call. And I was like, hey, you know what? I feel like this is, looking really good. I feel like there's a lot of potential here. Are you open to extending this call and continuing? He's like, yeah, totally. Let's go. And that turned into a total of like an hour, 15 minutes and $4,500.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So on this note of qualifying, are you kind of pre-qualifying in terms of the people that you're connecting with in the first place? Like, you already kind of know that they would somehow be interested, or are you qualifying them when they go to book the call? You like ask them some questions there, or like just kind of walk us through that, because what we found to be like some of the problems with our clients is that sometimes they'll do that strategy and they'll get people booking calls, but then they end up attracting all these unqualified leads. So and then the other thing is like, and this might be a messaging issue, but they kind of just like don't really know why they're on the call. They're like, yeah, I thought like we would just connect, but like, do you still see value in that? Just kind of walk us through like the qualifying.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I was gonna say something, but that last thing you said definitely sparks another sort of thing too. Is so yes to qualifying both on the call and before the call, and then the added thing that you definitely just sparked is like, yeah, your messaging better be freaking clear. Like, the person needs to know what they're getting themselves into. Like, the first question I ask on the call is, what motivated you to get on the call with me today? Right. And to me, that question is like so instrumental to knowing exactly what the intention is. Like, right off the bat, that question will usually actually allow me to be like, actually, you know what? I don't think this is a good fit. And I'll send them somewhere else or just end the call. Because like, I'm not wasting my time with bad fits either, right?
Yeah.
So like that question right off the bat, I mean, after building some rapport, obviously, but like that as a first question will weed people out a lot. But in terms of, again, before the call, personally, the big thing I'll do is, for example, with Meet Leonard, again, as you know, you specifically choose what kind of a person you're reaching out to. So that's already a bit of a pre-qualifier. And then my messaging is also very clear in terms of like what I'm sending them, so that they know exactly what I want to talk to them about. Like I specifically say, I want to like talk about closing rates, right? Okay. Very specific. Like right. It's only been maybe 1 out of like 10, maybe 1 out of 10 people that I get on a call with that are like, this is totally not what I thought it was. It's pretty rare. So very clear on your initial messaging and all that's going to be super important. But I do most of my qualifying on the call. And this may not work totally well for you, but for me, I like it on the call because I want to make sure that they don't qualify themselves out mistakenly. Because this is a big problem that can happen is they think like, especially if your website looks awesome and you got these amazing videos and like everything looks like so good, and someone might actually be like, wow, these guys look way too good for me. Like I think I might need to like work a little bit more before I get to this level. That kind of stuff could really get you to shoot yourself in the foot. So you want to be careful with how heavily you're qualifying before, because they could literally just kick themselves out and they would have been a perfect fit. Okay. So I found that one. So it's interesting. It's a challenging and interesting balance. But so again, it's like, as long as you're clear on like this is clearly what we're doing, at least that. And then if they can connect that, like, that's what I want, that's really what you need as a minimum qualifier. Is like, they just need to know what you're doing and that they want it. If you've got that, then you should continue qualifying on your call to really make sure, like, okay, it's good that you know what we have. It's good that you know that you want it. Yeah. Now, are you actually fit? Do I like you? Does your business fit our model? Right? Get into the mechanics on the call, because you can navigate the qualifying versus, again, they could pre-qualify themselves out.
Yeah. Okay. And on that, pre-qualifying themselves out. So, you know, it's pretty common for coaches to ask, like, do you have the financial resources to invest right now? And usually, sometimes they'll put the price right in there, but usually they'll put like, yes, I have resources. So for the people that put, no, I don't have resources, do you just not get on the call with them, or do you still get on the call with them? Because I know this is kind of like something that my team has kind of been battling with. It's like, maybe they believe that they don't, but yeah, we're just curious, like, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so my answer is exactly what we're saying, which is that's a pre-qualifying trap. Like, I don't even ask the question. I genuinely believe that if this is what they want, what they need, what they desire, what they know that they need to get to where they want to be, they'll find a way to pay. Right? Like, there's so many financial ways to like get money, whether it's through a loan, credit line, cash that they have, remortgaging. Like, and not that I'm saying you should necessarily get someone to freaking remortgage their house to invest in coaching, but if they feel, if one, you genuinely know that you can help this person no matter what, like you're just like 100% confident, right? And they're willing to remortgage their house for it. Now, again, not a huge, this kind of goes into another topic of like, you shouldn't take someone's last dollar, because then they're going to be like super desperate and on your ass. But there's sort of this interesting balance depending on your confidence and, you know, so on and so forth. But the point is, people will find a way. If they know it's what they need, they'll find a way. And, or worst case, by at least having a great call with them where you have actually delivered value, they'll be hooked. You know, maybe they won't buy now, which definitely sucks, and I'm not a fan of it for sure. But I'm an on the spot master. Like, I close on the spot. I hate follow-ups. But the worst case is if you deliver great value, they will be hooked, right? If you've given them like genuine value, you didn't just try to close them or sell them or talk all about your package, but you actually have them leave with a nugget that they can use that day. And then they continue to use it. Every time they use the piece of value you shared with them, they think of you every single time. Right. So every single time they're thinking, oh, that was so great that they gave me this and it's still working. Like, what would happen if I actually went for the whole program? Like that was a 1 hour call or like a 45-minute sales call. What would the program be like? It's inherently creates like an advocate for you. And of course, and I've even gotten a sale out of this. I've done so good on just the sales appointment call or discovery call, whatever you want to call it, for an enrollment call, whatever, that they went and told someone else and I sold that person.
Wow.
Right. So you got to be really careful, right? Like, yeah, the person you're trying to get in is the main person you want to sell, but there's so much more potential to the person than just necessarily selling them. They could become an advocate for you. They can get you referrals. You can be making a genuine impact on somebody and they can then come back. So yeah, it's an interesting challenge.
Yeah. That's really cool. So do you have a way that you find works to follow up with those people? Like, do you actually go back and follow up with those leads that were really interested but didn't close? And what is like your strategy for that?
Yeah. So I actually wrote up a full article on LinkedIn. That's like just my 4 steps to like successful follow-up that actually closes. So if you guys want to get access to that, Oliver Wolf on LinkedIn, it's like it's the only article I posted because I wrote it and it took me a while. And I was like, my God, I don't think I want to do this consistently.
I feel like you're more a video and audio guy than like
yeah. It's kind of, I like to more like flow and just like go and get it done kind of thing. And so it was fun to make. Like, I think it was actually pretty good. I did all the pictures and the cute stuff. And, but I was just like, Jesus Christ, this is taking forever. But anyway, so that's there. In a nutshell though, really. So there's a few things. I mean, if I want to keep it at least like to like, just like nuggets, consistency is one. Actually, let's start with mechanical. So the follow-up starts at the sales appointment, first of all. And this is extremely important what I mean by this. The follow-up is not just like all the contact that happens after the sales appointment. It's like as soon as you come close to the end and you're getting to those objections, it's extremely, extremely important to know exactly what the objection was before you get off the call. Because what typically happens is people will, it'll end up with something like, I need to think about it. It's usually what happens in terms of why you get off the call. And that gives you no clarity on what you're going to address on the follow-up call. So once you get on the follow-up call, here's what happens. When the last thing you got was, I need to think about it. You get on the call, you're like, hey, John, how's it going? Great. Yeah, how's Sparky the dog? Blah, 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 whatever. It's like, yeah, so have you had a chance to think about it? It's like, what does that even mean? That doesn't do anything. It's like, yes, I have. No, I haven't. Like, what? Like, it's completely pointless. You're just wasting time. So what you need to do is at the end of the sales appointment, figure out the objection. And one of the best ways to do that is what I call objection isolation. So objection isolation is literally that you get to the end of the call and you say, okay, schedule your follow-up, and you say, okay, so on, first of all, discover the objection. I should have preluded that. So assuming they say I need to think about it, you should obviously find out, like, if you don't mind me asking, or like, I totally understand it's a big investment. If you don't mind me asking, what is it that you feel you need to think about? If you want to be that direct, there's also like the yes ladder, which is like, if you don't mind me asking, in terms of the result, whatever your result is this the result that you're looking for? It's like, yes, it is. Like, okay, great. In terms of me being your coach and helping you get that result, do you trust that I can help you do that? It's like, yes, I do believe you can. It's like, great. And then in terms of the cost, is that aligned with the budget that you had in mind? And then this is usually where the no is. And we'll just assume that it is. So they say no, or like, it's a little bit more than I thought. It's like, okay, great. So if it weren't, so this is where you want to do the objection isolation. It's like, okay, great. So when I call you 3 days from now to follow up, and assuming you have the money, you have the budget, like the cost is exactly, you're good to cover it. Is there anything else that would get in the way from you making a decision on that call? Right. So you create a vision, right? Create a scenario where their current objection has been addressed. And then you say, from this scenario, will you be ready to buy? Right. And this is so important because it'll allow you to either discover other objections, but also put them in the mindset of buying on the follow-up, because they're literally visualizing themselves buying. Wow. And anyone who's a coach knows the power of visualizing, right? So you're getting them to manifest
the sale.
Exactly. Right. So there's a lot of like added benefits to this. So again, you find out if there's any other ones. And if you find out that there are other ones, try to address them now, obviously, right? If they have any other, like, oh, I'm just not sure if I'll have time to do a weekly call every week or some crap, like address it now, make sure you get it done, so on and so forth. Because whatever you don't address will simply, dwell and become worse over time, because then anyways, it turns into paranoia and so on. So that's just one thing. Now, the other thing is being really specific about your follow-up date and time. So at the end of your sales appointment, day and time, Friday, 5 p.m., whatever, I will give you a call to get your decision, right? Not to chat, not to see what you think, but to get a decision, right? That's the intention. And so a good chunk of the time, they won't answer. That's okay. It's literally just because they're usually still thinking about it, and you've actually triggered them to think about it. And the fact is, I guess there's another tip here. So I'm kind of all over the place here. There's just so many things that come up. Emergent.
Helpful. Yeah.
So one thing to keep in mind is it's not like they're thinking, like if some people schedule like follow-ups a week later or like 2 weeks later, it's like, why are you doing that? They're not going to take 7 days and nights thinking about it every single minute of the day, eating dinner with their wife, being like, oh, I wonder about this coaching or whatever it is. And, going to work, talking about it with all their coworkers, and like, no, they're not doing that. In fact, the moment they get off the call, they're pretty much like not thinking about it anymore. And so you should schedule your follow-ups like 2 days out maximum, because realistically, that's all it takes for them to really think it over and make a decision.
Yeah.
So now here's what typically happens though, is that over the 2 days, they still will have forgotten. So when you call them on the follow-up time, as much as you want it to be that it's actually follow-up to close, it's mostly just going to be a reminder for them to think about it, because they haven't thought about it since your call. So that's really what you're doing, is you're reminding them. And so they'll see your phone call, right? They're going to look at the phone and they're going to see and be like, I'm not ready. And that's okay. And so your process is you call at 5 o'clock as promised, leave a voicemail that says that you're fulfilling your promise. Right. And so here's like, and I had a client, it's so funny. I had a client actually tell me his experience on the other side. So on the call, I said like, hey, Mark was his name. Hey, Mark, just following up at, date, time as promised, whatever, but using the keyword promise. Right. And then here's what's cool is that by me saying that I fulfilled my promise, he has broken his because he also made a promise. So there's already this sort of sense of like, kind of like a bit of a debt kind of thing. And also again, like my professionalism, my trust, my this, my that, and then his like not following through with his word. Like we committed to this together, right? I fulfilled my side of the promise, and inherently you have not, because you didn't answer. So it kind of creates this healthy pressure that they need to like get on their shit. So one call that day, and then 2 hours later, call again, right? So you gave them a reminder. Now they're thinking about it. Get on them thinking about it, right? So give them a couple hours and then call again. Often this will actually work, like just by that second call. If not, then like just go to my article to get all the nitty gritty, but like you start calling every single day from that point at different times. And at least half of them, remind them that you're just calling because you had promised that you'd be giving them a follow-up call on Friday at whatever time, and you just wanted to fulfill your promise. And so you'll keep calling until you get a hold of them, because you promised that you would talk to them about their decision, right? And you keep using this whole promise thing because, one, again, it creates that all the stuff I just said, but it also gives you the in to keep calling, because your promise was you were going to talk to them about their decision. So until you talk to them, you have full permission to keep calling them straight up, because that was the promise and the expectation that was set, right? So this is sort of me giving you, like me in this current actual, form, to you, the listener, the permission to incessantly call people, or what's better known as like, what is it called? Well, I don't remember right now, but anyway, just keep calling. It's okay, because you've genuinely created a promise with them that says that you're going to get a hold of them.
Yeah. How do you format the promise in the first place?
Yeah. So, I mean, like once you literally just get to, cause here's the thing, right? Anytime you give your word, inherently you've made a promise, right? Like anytime you schedule something, you have made a promise that you'll be there. You don't literally have to say that you made a promise. On the follow-up call, you're going to, because the word promise has a lot of weight to it, but there's no need to say it at the sales appointment. Just by creating a next appointment, it's a promise, right? Like if I tell you, Nika, I'm going to come over, tomorrow, you're gonna like, even though you may not say it is, subconsciously you're thinking it's a promise. Like if I don't do it, I've broken your trust. And that's what not fulfilling a promise does, is it breaks trust. So it's the same thing. So just give your word about a specific time and date. If anything, that's the only thing you really need to make sure happens, is the time and date. That's what makes it a promise, right? There's so many people that, again, they're just like, yeah, I'll call you back later and we'll figure it out or something. Like, well, no, now that it's completely like broad and there's no specificity to it, there is no promise, right?
Got it. Wow, that's super powerful. I didn't expect this to go so much into the follow-up, but I think this is super valuable because a lot of coaches are like, oh, there went a lead that was interested and didn't buy, like goodbye forever. And it's like, well, that's probably going to be, that is now a warm lead for sure. Like definitely, maybe even a hot lead because they, literally wanted it. So,
well, they're definitely hot for sure. You just need to because that's the thing. Like there are some people where no matter what, and this is statistical, that you give them like anything and everything, they're still not going to decide on the spot. And you just need to do a good follow-up process that doesn't come off as pushy, which you just simply do by reiterating this whole promise thing. Like that completely alleviates it. Like again, to talk about my client that I was talking about, once I closed him, he specifically told me, he's like, man, like your follow-up it was so much funnier because I'm a sales coach. There's this sort of funny like paradox of like I'm selling people into sales coaching. So he literally emailed me I think 4 days into my follow-up process. He's like, hey man, I was just testing your follow-up process. Joking, really not, obviously, but like, we're good to go kind of thing. Give me a call today at this afternoon.
Yeah.
And so when we did talk about it, he's like, yeah, I know, actually, like it was really like the way you followed up with me was really, really good. And it really got me thinking. And the fact that, like I felt like I was betraying you by you saying that you fulfilled your side of the promise.
Powerful.
Yeah, it was freaking awesome.
That's super cool. Awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect place to kind of wrap up this episode before we go on too long, although I feel like we can kind of go on forever with all your wealth of knowledge. But maybe we can have you back another time to talk about other kinds of topics. But this has been super helpful. So if people want to connect with you though, and actually, learn more about your coaching or even get on a call with you, like tell us more about how they could do that.
Yeah. I mean, basically like this, I'm someone you want to connect with. If you like, basically what I do is I help entrepreneurs increase their closing ratio by 10 to 35% permanently. The reason why I do that is that I found in entrepreneurs, coaches, anybody really who's running a business, what has happened is they've typically mastered their craft, right? They've mastered their service that they provide or the product that they bring or the coaching that they do. They're really good at it. But their ability to sell themselves and their value does not reflect that mastery. Right. And that's where there's this huge gap, which takes away from what people deserve to have. Like if you can't properly sell what it is you have, even if it's the best thing that this person could have, if you don't know how to properly sell it, you're taking away from them. You're taking away from bettering their life. And so that's what I help solve, is that you're good at what you do. Now let me help you excel in that sales prowess you need to get it into the hands of the right people. Right. So if any of that resonates with you, that's the person that I help, is someone who has mastered their service, but is now looking to master their sales prowess. You can find me, Oliver Wolf, easily on Facebook. I mean, all the typical places. Phone number 514-434-8261. Fact is though, if you're at this point of this whole thing and you feel compelled to reach out to me, I'm sure you'll find a way.
I love that. Yeah. The people that deserve to find you and they're ready to find you will find a way to find you. So I love that. Cool. So thanks again for coming on. I'm super excited to share this with everyone. And thanks again for sharing all your wisdom.
Totally. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for facilitating this space. And excited to see what people can bring into their life accordingly.
Awesome.